Well, we're back right here on Hello Kuwait, and we have with us right now Atyab Alshatti, a well-known lawyer right here in the state of Kuwait. She's from Tahir Group Law Firm. Atyab, we'd like to welcome you to our program, Hello Kuwait.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. We know you have a busy schedule. Thank you for coming.
And it's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you for coming. And first off, we'd like to start now. What is the authority or sector that is authorized to eliminate domestic violence according to Law 16 for the year 2020? Okay. As our topic this evening, we'll be talking about domestic violence.
Yes. So, according to Article 3 from the Law 16 for the year 2020 regarding domestic violence, this article mainly stated that it shall be initiated a committee, a national committee for protection against domestic violence. This committee shall be under the supervision of the chairperson of the High Council of Family Affairs. And within this committee, it contains a member from the Ministry of Interior, a member from the Ministry of Health, a member from the Ministry of Education, from the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor, Ministry of Information, and each member of them should be an assistant secretary, not less than this. Also, 2 members from the civil society activists who have a background and experience of minimum 10 years working on, domestic violence, a representative from the higher council of the family affairs.
So tell us now, what are the roles of this committee according to Law 16 for the year 2020? Tell us their roles or activities, please.
Okay, so first and foremost, this committee have to come up with policies and structure policies to combat gender-based violence and domestic violence in the country. They should, structure some kind of policy to combat it, to find solutions for domestic violence, try to endorse families, protect families, and basically to dig into the root causes of domestic violence and help, structuring plans to combat it. Secondly, you have to revise the national laws that could contradict with the Law 16 for the year 2020. See, most of our laws may not be efficiently protective to when it comes to the domestic violence, and therefore it's a basic role of this committee to conduct and research and vet every national law that might contradict with these laws and come up with suggestions and recommendations in order to come up and cover these gaps and shortfalls within the law, and also to conduct training for government employees and government officials who undertake the implementation of the law. See, it is very logical to understand that it is their responsibility, every government employee, when they receive a complaint, when they receive any sort of, let's say, sign of domestic violence, they have to acknowledge and understand the way they deal with domestic violence. And that would not be easy if there was no prior training and understanding about domestic violence, the means of the laws, the dangers of domestic violence and how to combat it. Also, to raise public awareness through seminars, workshops, let's say programs.
Even interviews like this, yes.
Interviews like this, but when it comes under the jurisdiction of the work of the committee, in order to raise public awareness against the domestic violence, to enlighten people on how risky it is, the dangers of domestic violence, and how to protect victimized people of domestic violence. And of course, to initiate an annual report that would tackle all their activities that gone through the year, the recommendations and the solutions they came up to, the results of all the work that they have undertook, and what kind of, let's say, information they have obtained through searching and being in depth when they face the domestic violence cases.
So, Atyab, the law stated establishing shelters for women facing domestic violence. What are the services delivered to women facing violence within the shelters?
Yes, so Article 5 from the same law stated that there will be a sheltering center, and it comes along with the shelter, or let's say centers for kids who are being abused also, according to Article 77 from the law 21 for the year 2015 regarding, child abuse. So yes, there was an article that stated there should be shelters for women who are being abused and any individual who is being abused. And within this shelter, there are several services to be provided, mainly to provide them with social, physiological, and health support and services of rehabilitation. Also, to provide them with legal services when it comes to incidents and abuses that needs legal action. For example, when a person who have faced domestic abuse came with a condition that is unstable, unlike when it's a small abuse, when it's huge, when somebody needs to be hospitalized, and so there will be an investigation undertook.
Sure.
So there will be not only a service of health.
A health professional will be there to help out and check things.
Yeah, but
there'll be
also
also a support team there.
yes,
also.
support team, a legal support team to conduct and investigate on the domestic abuses. Also, this shelter should be enlightening domestic workers in the shelter and women who are being indoors about what it is to face domestic violence,
Sure.
how to
It's
combat
really a
it.
very bad thing. I mean, it's something that happens, and unfortunately, it happens quite a lot, I think. So people,
Yes.
they need this care. Correct?
Yes, of course.
Tell us more. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit more about the shelter and how things are going and so forth when it comes to the law, please.
Yes, so also the law stated that there should be a hotline in
Okay.
which every person who is facing domestic violence should report.
Can call the hotline.
Yes, they can call the hotline, and then a team of legal professionals that can go and undertake investigations.
Check out what's going on.
Exactly, and if somebody needed support or sheltering, they will be sent to the sheltering center. And of course, also to enlighten people generally, not only persons who have faced domestic abuse, but to enlighten people about the domestic violence, how to combat it, and how to prevent domestic violence and the dangers of domestic violence.
Very good points. And did the law consider the conservativity and confidentiality of domestic violence cases?
Definitely, and therefore the law stated within its articles that it shall be confidential. Every proceeding, legal measurements, legal remedies that are taken when government officials are dealing with a domestic violence case, starting the period of time in which they receive a phone call that is reporting on domestic violence, till the period in which it reaches court. Even the hearings before the court are going to be before the consular chamber.
Okay, so
Yes, so everything has to go confidential.
good to hear that. So what are the legal remedies and measurements taken once receiving domestic violence claims by police officers?
Yes, so when it comes to government authorities and official authorities undertaking a complaint that they have just received, first and foremost, they have to investigate with evidences such as eyewitnesses. And according to the law, it is permitted to investigate with minors, because according to the Criminal Act, minors' testimony may not be heard because they are below 18. But when it comes to this law, we can hear witnesses who are under the age of 18 if they can witness on domestic violence. And the conservativity of domestic violence is that it's happening in-house, in which there is a lack of evidence. So people are not going to be recording themselves or recording their family members. And this is why it's hard to get an evidence. And when it came to the clause of, let's say, the law, the legislator considered this conservativity, and therefore it is permissible to listen to testimony by minors. So the first thing that the official authorities are going to undertake is to gather and grab evidences. The second thing is to take the domestic abuser into custody, to remand them in custody in order to undertake legal remedies. So if it was proven that there is a domestic violence, then the abuser must face investigation and must face legal accusation, and there will be charge pressed against him. When it comes to the victimized person, the victimized person has to go through the medical help. So that's going to be through the forensic medical department, because the forensic medical department is the authorized authority within the country to initiate final reports. See, medical reports are within different types. We have a prior medical report. The prior medical report is the report that every individual can go and grab when they go to a hospital. So let's say any person who faced an incident, it may not be a domestic abuse. Two individuals got in a fight, right? They can go immediately to a hospital and get a report. But that report is always called a prior report, because it does not detect precisely the dimensions of the abuse or the attack itself, unlike when the forensic medical department undertake such investigation. So therefore, when it comes to the court, when the court examines evidence that is considered as a prior medical report would always be voided, because it's never a final report. And therefore, we always advise people who face domestic violence to be examined by the forensic medical department and get a final report.
There's many kinds of domestic violence, correct?
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about, go ahead.
Yes, of course. So when it comes to violence and gender-based violence, yes, there are lots of types, such as physiological violence, in which somebody would exploit another person, mentally use them and exploit them. There is a physical abuse, which is the most common abuse, in which people would, put anger, physical anger, and abuse and attacks on other person. Sexual abuse, verbal abuse. So when it comes to sexual abuse, such as sexual harassment and raping, when it comes to verbal abuse, it's when somebody, insults, slander,
puts them down,
or slander people. Slandering is considered as domestic abuse, or let's say abuse in general, because in a conservative community, slandering is very sensitive when it comes to someone's reputation. This is why it could be gender-based violence, it could be violence against women, and it could be domestic abuse if have ever been undertook by a family member according to the law. And therefore, see, back to the basic question.
Please.
Yeah. So after gathering the evidences by the police officers or the government authority undertaking the investigation, the victim has to go to the sheltering center, in which they will be provided with, sheltering, hospitality.
The necessities to be safe and feel comfortable.
Yes, social assistance and rehabilitations, legal assistance, and so on.
Okay, that's very important that the shelter is around to help these people.
Unfortunately, not at the moment.
Okay.
So even when the law number 16 for the year 2021 was initiated last year, unfortunately, it's not sufficiently implemented. So we are suffering from lack of low implementation, and this is why we don't have shelters yet. And we still face these challenges in which public government employees and government officials are not aware of the law itself, are not aware of the meaning of domestic abuse, and how to handle cases that report to them.
Well, we're glad that you're here to clarify all of these things, to make it clear for everyone who may be watching out there, and hopefully these shelters will be implemented and be up and working.
Well, we try our best.
That's all you can do, is try your best, and we appreciate your time as usual with us right here on the program. Do you have any last words or comments that you'd like to summarize with this evening about domestic violence?
Yeah, well, it is the international campaign to eliminate violence against women, and this is why we are tackling this issue. And we would call every woman, to gather each other and maybe call for civil society and to talk it through.
Very well said, and it was a pleasure to have you on our program this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you very much. We were speaking to Atyab Alshatti, a well-known lawyer right here in the state of Kuwait from Tahir Group Law Firm, wishing her all the best of luck in her future endeavors, and we'd like to thank her for her time with us this evening. Right now we're going to move on to our next report dealing with Kuwait's heritage. Stay tuned.